That's
Katie, you there? Oh.
yeah. Thanks.
Hi.
It's already a good start.
Yeah, completely normal start for our video,
Yeah, I
right?
know.
How
To
are
be
you
honest,
today?
um, I'm looking at the snow.
Hi,
That's
probably
starting.
Cody. Oh, Haley. I did
Yeah.
a video with
Oh,
Haley.
so my mom and my brother have just joined.
Oh, that's your brother. Oh, hi,
Yeah,
brother.
yeah, I'm recruiting everybody.
Mm. You send it over to everybody?
Uh, yeah, I kind of harass people. I'm like, watch my stuff. How
Oh,
about you?
so can't prove it. And so how's the weather?
What?
Are you having great weather today?
I'll show you.
Ooh.
Just look at it.
Oh yeah, wonderful.
Oh, you say it's wonderful.
Oh,
I know
bonjour,
some other people.
there's Marian just joined. She's like my number one fan. She's a she goes to school with my daughter and she's always the first to like all of my stories and all of my videos. She's so cute.
Hey, we got some fans.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, we do.
that's okay.
So,
Well,
did
so
you so we decided to do this live about how we navigate our lives with ADHD.
yep.
And there is, I was thinking about it before and I was like, where can we start with this? Because there are so many things. And for me, it's like a multitude of different things throughout the day. And I was thinking like, where could we, you know, where could we start with this? Because there are so many different things. But I wanted to ask you, like, is there anything um, specific about like your day-to-day life where you're always affected by this?
Um, yeah, actually, it's getting a routine going. Because for example, this morning, or actually not this morning, before I went on to the live, I went to go get my earbuds in my coat pocket, and I went into my pocket, and I came back with my car keys. So it's the simple things of it's getting a routine going, and then having to like anybody with ADHD can attest how many times they have to go back to a specific spot
Oh
to
yeah.
or do a specific task over and over again because they had forgotten something.
Oh yeah. And for me it's like sometimes I leave something in one place and I go into a different room and I come back and I have no idea where I left it. And it's like it's like and I'm telling myself like this was 3 minutes ago, like you should know where it is. So I go through the motions, you know. I'm like, okay, I went through the door, then I put down my coat, then I went there, and then you know I end up looking for the thing for like half an hour, and then I'm like, oh well, you know, I'm not going to look for this all day, and I go and get something in the fridge and it's there.
Oh yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
ah, okay, yeah, very normal place to leave your car keys or something, yeah.
Well, that's it's kind of how not how I came across something was wrong with my brain because my brain was has been just off the whole entire time, but also being just recently diagnosed with post-concussion syndrome, so that doesn't help either. Um,
Is
but the thing that
it your
started it,
brother who says, I always just say, I guess the house ate
yeah,
it?
yes.
Yeah, I'll remember that one because that's an easy cop out. Like, I don't know, the house must have eaten it. Yeah, very good one.
Yeah, well, of course, because it's like the dryer. It always eats your
Oh
clothes
yeah,
for some reason.
yeah, and that's like a global thing
Hmm.
because I thought, you know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just stupid, you know, I don't know where I put my clothes. And I have so many friends who tell me the same thing. They just have, things that get lost, although it's supposed to be in the exact same space or, place in the house. It's so bizarre.
Well, I found a pair of pants that I had been looking for forever in the kitchen cupboard.
Oh, hi, Emma. Emma's my daughter.
Hi.
Yeah, so you were looking in the kitchen cupboard.
And I came across a pair of pants that had been missing for weeks. So, so what I want to know is like, how do people with ADHD, like, how do they adapt with routines? Because I know how frustrating it is when it comes to just doing simple tasks, and then uh, the amount of time like wasted trying to go try to retrace your steps,
Yeah.
or go to like a different room, and you're like, why did I come here?
Yeah, well, I've tried so many different things because, I mean, once you figured out that something's going on, or that you need some kind of, help somehow, or direction, to help you get just through a normal basic routine. I've been, looking for so many different ways to do things, and different routines and different systems to stick to. But then my issue is that I'm like extremely kind of disheveled, and then but also extremely organized. So I have like this when I'm like really I really want to do something, I'm really invested in something, I get like this hyper fixation on doing everything perfectly right. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to establish a complete new system that's going to be perfect for my routine. And this is going to be so simple to apply. And I'm just going to do that every day. And it takes me like a week or two every day, doing like, thinking about how I could do stuff, and then I do like an entire board, and then I hang up stuff like and then I'm like, okay, this is going to be so easy, this is going to be like the perfect system for me. And then I perfectly adhere to the system for about 2 weeks, and then I don't know at what point it goes away. And then I'm like, as if it had never existed.
I usually, when that happens for me, when I get something going, and I actually have like it's to the T, I'm very consistent with it, but then I find it funny when there's like a physical blockage in my way. So for example, I have my Nana's rocking chair that mother I don't want, and I know you're in the chat. Um, and it's sitting in my living room, because no, not my living room. It's sitting in my kitchen.
Hmm.
Because I don't want it, and it's supposed to be out. And so, what better place to put it by the door?
No, of course.
But that kind of stops my momentum to doing my dishes. So then
Your mom says shh.
I told her to come. I hope she regrets it.
But that's like, I'm sorry, Katie's mom, but that's like such a mom thing to do that my mom has been doing for years now. It's like every time she finds something in her house that she doesn't want anymore, but she somehow convinces herself and then me that it would be great in my home, or I could really use that, then somehow it ends up in my house. And after 2 3 days, I'm like, I don't need this, why is this here, why did I take this home? And then she usually checks in like a month after or something. She's like, so how's it going with this and that, are you happy with it? And I'm like, yeah, great. So I have like tons of stuff. She also gives me really great stuff. I mean, she also, hands me down some stuff that is really nice, and that I really like, and that I really use. But there are really some things I'm like, don't give me anything anymore. Like, my house is full of stuff. I don't need anything. I have enough chairs. I don't need to. And so, yeah, that's having kind of people hand you down stuff and gift you stuff is a hard one for me because I really like to, I don't want to, to look at the person, go like, well, actually, I think that's really ugly, or, I wouldn't like that in my home, or, oh, Emma says that my brother, he got a drawer organizer for dishes for Christmas. Well, that's typically my mom. She's like, she's been going to my brother. So he has a new apartment. He moved in like 2 years ago. So it's been, a little while. And every time she goes to his place, she opens the drawer in the kitchen, the one where you put your cutlery and stuff, and she opens it and there's no, it's just all, bare, laid out in there. And my brother doesn't care. I mean, it's his house, he doesn't care about things being very organized. But every time she goes there, she's like, oh, you really should put an organizer in your drawer. It would be so great. And my brother's like, I don't really care. That's not like the top priority in my home. And so she said it about 12 times last year, and at Christmas she gave him one as a Christmas gift. So he couldn't say no.
It's more like, here's a subtle nudge. Until it's like she ends up putting all the dishes in that, or all the cutlery in that, or see, the drawer organizer. So that'll be the next thing. So she could have gladly given it to him, but it's now okay. The next step is actually putting it in.
Oh, well, he probably didn't do anything with it. It's probably just sitting somewhere in his apartment and just waiting for my mom to come next time and organize the drawer. And I mean, he'll probably be fine with it, but he just didn't need it. And that's kind of the stuff she does. She's like, oh, I think you really this would really be useful, and then I end up with tons of stuff in my home too.
Oh, see, I've been very good. Claudia, I'll get to your little comment that you left too, but I'm very good at saying no to my mom, and because my nana was the same way. Here's some paper clippings. I thought of you. I'm like, oh, Nana, no, thank you. I don't need these. But
it's
my
important
brother,
to say no. It's an important thing to learn to say no to people.
yeah, because you're setting boundaries, right? Yeah. Especially when I find that obviously with ADHD, you don't really have functional memory. So when someone says something, you start to second guess yourself a lot. So being able to say no, and then being able to put up those boundaries, being able to just be confident in yourself to do it. But it's really hard when it comes to like sentimental stuff, or if it comes to family.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Be cold with that though.
But I think your brother said something really interesting. He said something. He said, I saw an interesting video saying people with ADHD get a dopamine hit, not just from doing the plan, but making the plan too, which leads to, okay, I got happy juice and I don't need to do the thing now.
Yeah.
And I think that is quite accurate. Yeah.
Hi, Lee. Oh, and hi, Dean. I saw you enter before.
Oh, yeah. Hi.
Hi, guys. Thank you for joining our little tangent right now.
Oh, yeah.
We're currently talking about. Oh no. What were we talking about?
Oh, we were talking. I was just. I read your brother's comment about the dopamine hit that we can get when we organize something, but then, doing the thing is not as interesting as planning the thing.
Yeah, it's like the chase is better than the catch.
Yeah.
And it's especially for people with ADHD, we have so many ideas that come to mind. I find that
Oh yeah.
when this happens, when I have too many ideas and I don't like fully execute them, I get really anxious. And it's even worse when I'm at work, where I'm having like being a registered massage therapist, where you're super excited about a project, but you're having to massage people at a very
Yeah.
Oh, the amount of energy that you get and the amount of anxiety that just kind of kicks in. You're like, oh my God, what
Yeah.
am I doing? And so if this is why I've become more consistent with doing certain projects or ideas, because if I don't, even if it's not, if it has no, not face value, but if I don't actually do it, then I'm super anxious.
Yeah.
So this is where I've been more consistent with my projects and stuff, which that was all these little tools that I've gathered throughout the years is just like what works best for me, but it might work best for someone else.
Oh yeah, of course. And I think this is like so it's not a one size fits all. So even though you go and do some research on the internet and find out, 5 different systems, then maybe you're going to try out the 5 different systems and none of them are going to apply to you or speak to you, in a way where you think, okay, this is really helping me. Because this is what I've experienced throughout the years is to think, well, I stumbled on this thing that seems really good and this idea, so I'm going to try that out. And then in the end, I'm just left kind of unsatisfied and like, okay, this is still not, something that's really helping me out. It's kind of a small crutch or something for certain circumstances, but not for really for every day. And I see Dorisha says she gets really happy when she's planning too. I think that's really also because there's all of this idea of the process that's interesting. When I did your interview for my channel, we were talking about the artistic process too, and how that was something that really motivated you, that it wasn't really only the outcome, even if you had an idea of what you wanted, but it was more of like going through the process and what you were experiencing during the process. And I think it's the same also with planning and organizing and having a system and stuff, because then it's like you have all the, it's like you're brainstorming yourself. I feel that way. I'm like sitting down with a piece of paper and a planner and my computer. I'm like, okay, so what could I do? And I'm like, I have 10 ideas. I'll just write them down. And it's like this moment is really feeding my brain. And then when it's all finished, I'm like, okay, I'm done. And then it's over.
Maybe that's what you need though, because a lot for me, especially when again when I have too many ideas, and some of them are just not unrealistic, but it's not um, I can't actually do it in that time. So instead of leaving tabs open and allowing the pile to just obviously pile up, but I brain dump and I just write down all the stuff that's in my head, and whether it's just ridiculous stuff or if it's um, uh, actual ideas, it just kind of
Oh, hi,
allows.
Jolene.
Hmm?
There's Jolene who just joined our live.
Hi. I was gonna say you have ADHD.
Or I'm just like, oh,
Now what was I saying?
Oh, that because of the planning and that it was more of that, like you were dumping down all of your ideas, even if they weren't completely relevant to the situation. You would just brain dump.
Yeah, and that's where I was gonna go with what you were saying, where once it's written down, um, then nothing happens afterwards. But maybe that's just what your brain was saying. I just want it in physical form, and it's just so you don't forget, because that's where we kind of keep too many tabs open of ideas or stuff that needs to get done. And the age old thing of people saying, "Why do you make a list?" It's like make lists all the time. I lose
Oh
lists
yeah.
all the time.
I
But
don't know how many lists I have on, I like in my notes app. There are
yeah,
so many notes because I like write down notes for everything. So I have like grocery lists and books I want to read and lyrics I've written 5 years ago and then also something I have to buy for my kids' school, but then also a new system, a new planning system, and what I have to do for next week. So I have so many lists, but it does still help me if I've written something down. It does still help me to memorize it, but then it's very different to write it down physically with a pen on a paper and on my phone. And if I write it down with a pen and that I do the motion of writing, I tend to remember that better than just writing it down on a note in my phone.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. I find it's better to be able to write something down physically, but then again, writing it, I hate, not that I hate writing, but I hate writing, like physically. So sometimes I put it in a text to myself because I don't know why, but my thumbs kind of keep up with my thinking, and so when I'm writing, it just my writing is too slow, so I just kind of lose my train of thought. But
Okay.
like anybody in the chat, what do you prefer when you're writing down, like when you're getting lists together? Would you rather write it down? Would you rather put it in like a note on your phone or something, or like
Mm.
sticky notes everywhere? Because it's everybody's got their own weird way of doing stuff, and it's just interesting how people um come up with their own unique ideas or ways to that work for themselves,
Oh yeah,
right?
sure. Because I think we all have different. Even if you have 10 people that have ADHD, where there's still 10 different people that are functioning in different ways. Even if we have, the same kind of the same kind of issues sometimes, then I think we still have, different likes and dislikes and how we like to go about things. So I think everyone that's in this position should really try to find what works for them. I can only speak for myself there because I don't think we're all the same.
No, and what works for one doesn't work for the other, but then it's like it's these options that you've never, like people always told, but you never actually tried. And like how we were talking about lists and stuff, it was I have several notebooks, all with different types of different types of writing, different types of lists, different like thought processes written down, and then like random pieces of paper. But um,
Like notebooks are my dear love and my nemesis. I have so many notebooks. And there's like this store here in France that is really like, it's kind of like a dollar store. And
mhm.
the thing is, they have amazing notebooks and like amazing stationery and stuff. And I don't know why I'm so into that. I'm like, I've always been like, even when I was like in middle school and I had a little bit of pocket money, I would go out and buy. I don't know if you remember, like there were these gel pens that smelled, you know and
uh,
you had like this huge, like this rainbow array of pens, and they smelled like strawberry, blueberry and stuff. And so I would go out and buy so many pens and stationery and stuff. I always loved that. I don't know why, probably because I wrote journals so much. So because I was writing all of my journals, I just loved stationery, so that kind of stuck with me. And now every time I go to that store, that's why I try not to go to there too much. But if I go to the store, I'm like, oh, this notebook is really nice. I could use this just for my grocery shopping list. And then, oh, and this one is really nice. I'll use this one for like, my bucket list. And then I could use this other one. So I end up having like 15 different notebooks at home. And then again, I will tend to use them for a week or two and be like, oh, this is great. This is like the best idea I ever had. And then suddenly I lose one, and then I lose another one, and then I lose interest. And then 2 years later, I'm like, what's this notebook? And it's like a 3-year-old grocery list. So yeah.
oh, that's where that went.
Yeah. So
But
yeah.
okay.
I love
Uh,
that, but it's not easy to kind of, it's again the same problem with keeping the system running somehow.
I I'll add a couple things to that. Mom, I'll get to your little comment too. But before I forget this, it was when you were talking about the gel pens. I remember the gel pens when I was in like elementary school, and I used to um I ended up like sucking out the ink.
I was
Yeah,
so sure. I was so sure you were going to say
yeah.
that.
So many times I would end up with like metallic gel pen ink in my mouth, and I'm like, oh my God, no, not the gel pen.
But
Um,
so did they taste? Because I never ate them. I have a friend who did that too. But how did they taste? They didn't taste like they smelled though.
oh, no, they just tasted awful. Like I, I hope people don't just eat those on a norm.
Yeah, because they're not
Oh
supposed to be edible. So yeah, that's the problem.
no, see, mine weren't smelly. I was just because I was chewing on the back of it, and then I just like I'd actually just like inhaled like. um, but what was I gonna say? I think it's the shopping aspect that probably it's just the dopamine that you get from buying stuff, and the potential for items that potential that certain items have that you're like, oh, this could actually help me, but in actuality, I just want to buy it, and it feels good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so difficult though. Is there, did you want to say something about your mom's comment?
Yeah, because she'd always tell me about this way that she does. She'd always say, like obviously she said, I find saying it out loud, Helena, don't put it down, put it away, and that works for you, mom. But you know what? It is. I had to instill that with myself too because having ADHD, um, doing menial tasks is like pulling teeth, and you just don't want to do it. You don't want to have to put your dish rag back on the put it back in the kitchen. But no, you just rather it stay where you know where it is,
Yeah.
and then it just stays on the floor, and you just kind of avoid it. But
Yeah.
and then just forget about it. But yeah, like I had to do that myself because the amount of times that I was too lenient with myself, my apartment was a disaster. My life was a fart. Let's just say that. My life was a fart if I didn't have some sort of discipline. So, yes, mom, it actually worked. Okay?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
I try if, but that's the issue I have with like the entire mindset because when you're in a good day, that you're feeling okay, you still have ADHD. So
Yeah.
when you're feeling okay, you can really try to be conscious about those things and go like, Lisa, don't put it down, put it away. And then you're like, oh, I'm so proud. I just put that there. That's really great. It's not messing up my house and stuff. And so that's in a good day. But when I'm in a bad day, or when I have, all of the other ickier symptoms of ADHD and I wouldn't go as far as to say depression because it's not depression all the time, but I like in it being in a depressive state when you're not in a good mindset, then that becomes completely impossible.
That's where I kind of hit a wall, and this is
Oh,
why I
Vic,
had to get back on.
hi, Vic. And
Hi.
Ranfungen or Ranfungen. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, it was that was the turning point where I actually had to go back on my ADHD meds because I could not get my life started. It would just be like I'd have a good day, get things done, and then any sort of hiccups or interruption, my day would not actually go anywhere. And then I'd always tell people you can tell my mental health status by the condition of my hair. So when I'm in a
Oh, yeah,
bad
that's so
yeah.
true.
So that's kind of my marker of like how gross is my hair. I still shower, but because I have super curly hair, I I have to blow dry it, I have to straighten it, and that's a task in
Yeah, yeah,
itself. And so when I'm doing good, like I don't wash my hair. I wash my hair every like week and a
yeah,
half. Still shower, but only a week and a half because my hair is so dry.
yeah,
Um, but when the momentum starts to die out, it's gross, but it's like 3 weeks and I don't wash my hair. But it's like then it starts that cycle all
yeah,
over again of okay, my hair's gross, I need to do it. I have to actually go and do it, Katie. And
yeah,
but I have to today because it takes me a couple hours just to do everything.
yeah, yeah.
Um but yeah, it's like you can tell little hints about someone by their mental health state by how hygiene and then like the
Yeah.
surroundings
Oh
because
yeah, of course. For me, it's always been the state of my home.
oh yeah.
Like there and there have been moments where everything was highly organized and everything, there was nothing lying around. Everything was at the right place and stuff. And I also had a because I was working so many hours a week and being a single mom with two kids, I ended up hiring a cleaning lady that came uh, once a week, once a week for like 2 hours, and she did like the big stuff, all the floors, bathroom and kitchen and stuff. So everything was kept in a in a clean state for the biggest things and the things that took up the most time, so I didn't have to do that, and then I would just have to keep up with the rest throughout the week, and that really helped me a lot. But then she didn't she ended up moving, and so I didn't have her anymore. I didn't hire anyone else afterwards. And then I had this moment last year at the beginning of the year. I went into a depression for about 6 months.
Mhm.
And then just everything crashed completely. And I had moments where I would be on the phone with my therapist and I would switch on the camera and I would show her,
Yeah.
like, look at the state of my house. Like, I can't deal with this. And it's like so difficult because you want to have a clean home and everything good for the kids and everything being, um, nice and relaxed, because having tons of shit around you doesn't help you to relax anyhow. And so I was like, I really want this to be better, but just looking at it, it takes up so much energy. And like the idea of the amount of energy I will need to get to the end of this is so daunting that I don't even know where to start. And this is, then you just get into this negative circle of things. And then you never do anything, or you do, the bare minimum, but it doesn't help. And so it was really difficult getting out of this somehow. And also because I come from a home where my mom is more on the OCD side. So if you go to my mom's house, you can literally eat on the floor. You could just dump your food on the floor and eat there. There's like no bacteria nowhere. Everything has its place. It looks like a fucking hotel when you walk into our house. So it like everything is extremely neat. So it's not like overly OCD, but it's
Hmm.
still in that spectrum. So I come from that type of home. So for me, it was extremely confronting, being ADHD was really difficult. And so there were, oh, Joanne is here. Joanne Whitlock. Hi. She's great. She's a creator from the UK. She's really great.
Nice. That'd be a little gathering.
Yeah.
People are in and out. That's good. Um, hold on. I like to touch buttons apparently, but
Yeah.
I, I'm trying to send something on. Yeah.
And so
There.
yeah, it was that was kind of hard, and now I'm in this constant state of like I don't I don't really know where I can get the energy from to do everything I have to do every day. And I'm confronted with how I grew up, which was, in an extremely neat home, and that this is kind of the basic norm. Like it should be like this in my house, but I know it's unusual and it's not normal to have everything, completely perfect kind of. But it's like that's in my brain. That's so deep in my brain, this idea of my house should look like this, and I can't somehow manage to get there, or I can't keep up with the pace because it demands so much energy. So that's really, really hard. So yeah, it's really difficult for me sometimes to um give myself grace, I suppose.
Yeah, because you had high standards being raised in such a household that especially when you don't know what's actually going on and how come you can't function like, how your mom does. And, to be fair, I don't think her way is just any better either
Oh no.
because she probably like any you want to keep your place clean, so I couldn't imagine her not being too happy when things are out of place, right?
Oh yeah, sure. Oh, hi, Krista. Yeah, and I suppose we've had this discussion so many times with my brother about, how this must be for her. And it must be such high stress. There must be such high stress levels for her, especially when she has people around. And she
Mhm.
doesn't look like it. She doesn't seem extremely stressed or anything because it's just the way she does things. But still, it must imply some type of, stress level to keep everything that perfect,
Yeah,
because
and
it's not it takes some time. It's not
but
automatically everything's at its place. It does take her time to clean and put things back, and I mean it's must be a huge time consumption to have a house like that.
it's always the upbringing from the generation before, right? And it's I don't want to say it's learned behavior, but it can be learned behavior. But I find that now more leniency in being able to understand what's going on, that you're not a complete degenerate, that you can't be on time, or you're always constantly forgetting stuff, or if you're constantly having your place a mess. As long because I was the same way with myself. It's like, why is my house disgusting? um and this was more like way 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 back when I was with my ex at the time. It was to the point that, like, we weren't, I don't want to say we were slobs, but obviously young, we just didn't take care of the house, and it got to a
Yeah,
point where we didn't want to have anybody coming over
yeah.
because we'd all we'd get the third degree. Why is your apartment messy? It's like, well, don't come over then. But when I moved on my own, that's where I was very adamant of keeping my apartment
Yeah,
clean. But then when I hit a lull, like a really stressful time for about 5, 6 years, and my apartment was a
yeah.
disaster. And it was I don't want to say it was laziness. It was like, you look at it, you're like, oh, why can't I just get started, just go and do it, and you just kind of you end up in a paralyzed state. I
Yeah,
think it was where you're like just staring at the wall
yeah.
because you're wanting to do something so badly that you just end up sitting there, and then hours
But
go
that is
by.
that's a syndrome. It's ADHD paralysis is a syndrome too, that you just can't move and can't do stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and so when that happens, you're not able to actually like go forth what you need to do, and then you just kind of self-deprecate yourself, and then it just the continuous cycle. But then I would try everything. I remember one year I was off social media for about a year, and I was very disciplined. I was very like I was doing good. And then I was like, well, as much as social media is like trash a little bit, but uh, but it connects you to, you don't realize how isolated you become, because I live on my own and a lot of my friends and family aren't in the city that I'm living in.
Yeah.
So you become really isolated, and then when that happens, it's like you just create this bubble of yuck. And well, hold on, I lost my train of thought. And how I explain this to people is, you got to picture a train going along these tracks, and then the tracks stop, but the train keeps going. That's how I know that I'm like, oh, I'm just grasping at straws to get, but
Well, but I think everybody got the general idea.
yeah,
Right, guys? In the chat, everyone got Katie's idea.
yeah.
But we said we should call this, what did you tell me yesterday about tangents?
Oh, tangents without borders.
Oh, tangents without borders. Yeah, I think that's really good. Oh, so Joanne says, in minimalism, they divide cleaning into 4 categories: declutter, tidy, clean, and deep clean. For me, the declutter part gave me the dopamine I needed. Breaking it down really helped. Oh, yeah. That I think, and Jolene says, if you need all your energy to get through the day, you don't have energy for cleaning. Poor mental health is a huge drain on your energy levels. Yes, very true. Very hard to get out of. Yeah. I think
Absolutely.
it's also, yeah, that's why I really had to work on this thing with my therapist about giving myself grace for almost everything, just like learning how to give myself grace, and just to sit with the situation and to tell myself it's okay, because it's not an infinite situation. It's going to change because every day can be different. Maybe tomorrow I'll wake up and I'll feel more energy, or I'll be in a better mood, or maybe it's going to be next week or next month, but I'm not going to be constantly in a difficult mindset or in a depressive mindset, and I'm going to overcome that. But when I'm in it, I should, give myself some grace, and don't and not like be self-deprecating and negative with myself about just the fact I didn't do my laundry today. So I did work on that quite a lot. And then it had like the opposite effect, because actually no one ever told me that. Like, I'm 38 today, and the first time someone ever really said that to my face, it was my therapist last year, where she was like, Lisa, actually no one gives an F if you did your laundry today. It's just you. And I was like, well, there's the kids. And she was like, what, don't the kids have any other clothes? I was like, yeah, of course they have other clothes. So she was like, well, no one cares then. It's not a real topic in your day, because it's just you battering yourself up for not doing the laundry today that you actually can do either tomorrow or the day after. It's not going to change anything fundamental in your life. So that's okay. And I was like, yeah, actually it is. And then it went like the other way. So then I was like, well, actually, everything is okay. I don't really give a shit about nothing. So then I went through a phase where it was really awful, and where I wasn't doing much, because I was like, this is just my house, no one cares. And the people who come over, they know me well enough to know that, it could be difficult sometimes. But then it got to such a point where I was like, well, we can't live like this. So I must find some type of middle ground. And then it's like, this is sometimes the thing in different aspects. The thing where I struggle is like, it's either 0% or it's 1,000%. But finding middle ground for everything, like in the amount of energy I put into stuff, into emotion, how emotionally invested I am in relationships, and it's always either 0 or 1,000. And getting to some type of like mentally sane level is really, really hard. And I find that, everywhere.
You'll never get to that mentally sane part because I find that even with the most quote unquote
Oh,
normal
we have
person.
the Wolf Johnson in the house. He's
Oh,
also Canadian like you, maybe. Oh, do you know him?
well, not I don't know him, but I know that he's Canadian,
You know of him?
and I think I know the how close in the Southern Ontario region he is.
Oh,
But hey,
hi. And
um,
Crystal she says, I do what I can and I try not to be hard on myself. Same with living with my mom right now. I do whatever I'm able to do, and she notices the effort, which speaks volumes. Oh yeah, it does. When someone notices what you do, it does speak volumes. When someone's like, "Oh wow, you did this. That's great," then you're like, "Yeah."
yeah, it absolutely is. There's only a small problem with that. It's when you start to overutilize, like, hey, I can just do this tomorrow. I can do this tomorrow, and then you just end up with 3 weeks worth of laundry, and you just kind of have to go to the laundromat with all 3 dozen bags of laundry. But that's
Oh
why
yeah.
I have clothes. Just when you run out, you just have at least.
Oh, we have the TDIP
Yeah.
in the house. Hey guys. Oh, the Dreading It podcast. For those who don't know about the TDIP, you should go and check out what they do. Do you know the TDIP?
Very little. I'm sorry, guys. I
Oh,
try
you
not.
should. Oh, you should go and check them out. They are awesome.
Actually, my mom is a big fan. She
Oh,
always
wow.
little her little interactions with them. I'm like, "Aw, ma, you're cute."
Well, she's going to be very happy then to see
Oh,
they're here too.
yeah. So we're getting a little bit following.
But yeah, I think that's like also all of the procrastination. It has to do with the dopamine and it has to do with that rush. It's something that I've experienced my entire life because when I was in school, like deadlines for me, I call them death lines. It's not like you have until, next Thursday to do something. I'm like, "Oh, next Thursday. That's okay. I'll just start Wednesday afternoon." And it's like I have so much thank you. I'm showing some love too. Show some love to the TDIP.
Bye. Well, thanks for passing
Oh yeah,
by.
thanks guys. But
Much
yeah,
appreciated.
it's like I have this somehow I have very low self-esteem for some things, and then I have an extremely high confidence for other stuff. And I'm like, this is going to be, an easy task. I don't need a week to do that. And then, somehow I get to Monday, I'm like, oh, deadline's Thursday. Maybe I should start thinking about some stuff. So I write down two or three things. And then suddenly it's Wednesday morning. I'm like, oh, maybe I should start doing this. And then like Wednesday afternoon. So first I take a coffee break. And then Wednesday afternoon, I'm like, well, it's for tomorrow. I should really get this thing going. And then I end up not sleeping all night and I pull an all-nighter and then I'm like, ta-da! And every time, well, I didn't always have like amazing grades doing that, but most of the time it worked out fine. So I was like, why should I need to take an entire week if I can crunch this down to 10 hours and do other stuff I really want to do the rest of the week?
Yeah.
So that's like the procrastination stuff. That's always kind of been my way of life, somehow.
Well, at least you started in the afternoon. I'd be like the night before, I'd be like, oh, or actually, I get super excited about projects, and then I'll start it, and then that's where like, oh, I got time,
Of
and then I
course.
just end up doing every sort of task that I don't need to do right now, just to
Oh
avoid
yeah,
having
yeah,
to do that.
yeah. Oh, so true, so true. And Wolf says the same. He says, "Same, Lisa." Yeah, I think I think we are quite a lot of people experiencing that. But then, I mean, the issue is I think if I would have done this, like when I was in school, if I would have done this and every time I failed, like dramatically failed, maybe I would have thought like, yeah, well, this isn't a good idea, you know, I can't do this every time. But then the problem is it worked every time. So by having this kind of you know, learning, you said like it's learned behavior sometimes, and this is part of it too. If you procrastinate, but every time you kind of manage to get there, even if you know, then you kind of learn. The thing you learn about yourself is I can manage to crunch down a week's worth of work into one afternoon, so I don't need to do it the entire week. So if I'm capable of that and it has worked 19 times out of 20, then that means the probability is high enough for me to continue doing it that way.
Yeah, well, you start to become like a timing master where you're like, I know how long every little task or project is gonna take. It just depends on the not the efficiency of it. It's the what is the quality of the work.
Oh yeah.
It, it's you it also depends on how interested you are. For example, like I used to play piano from age 8 to about 17. And I'm pretty sure it's probably from the post-concussion syndrome, but I really had a hard time. I still have hard time understanding sentences put together or what I'm reading. It's like it doesn't make sense to me. And so like when it came to theory, like I love playing piano, but when it came to theory and having to do all the stupid note stuff, I started doing in my notebook and I just kind of fell behind. But yeah, like if you actually have an interest, you want to get it done,
Yeah.
it gets done quicker and it gets done with more quality. So people
Yeah.
with ADHD, it's the how much are you actually
Oh,
interested
of
in
course.
such subject?
Oh,
And
100%.
you're fixated, and then you're like, I didn't sleep or eat or shower for the last 3 days or so.
Yeah, but you did tons of other stuff that you really love. But that's like really the almost the entire story of it is like how much does this interest me? Then I find now that I'm getting older, I find sometimes when I manage to accomplish a task that I really didn't want to do,
Mhm.
I'm really proud of myself. I'm like, oh, I managed to get through it. You know, this is really, it's something I've been putting off for a few days that I really have to do, that I don't have a choice, but that I've been putting off and putting off. And now I managed to push myself and to get through it to the end. And then I'm like, oh, I'm really happy you did this, Lisa. So it's also sometimes because getting really highly invested in, and doing stuff you really love to do, I mean, that's easy. I mean, I don't have any problem with being highly invested in stuff I really want to do.
Well, the that's kind of where I have an issue with my art is majority of the time that I'm arting, it's not like I enjoy. I'm not gonna be like, oh my God, I'm in zen when I'm doing my art. It's like more of a challenge of okay, let's see how quick I can get this done.
Yeah.
And can I get it to the level that I want it to, but not be super invested because then I don't end up finishing it.
Yeah.
Like like I was saying in the interview before, where it's like the uh you start when you can't troubleshoot your work, you just give up. And this is where I force myself to push farther that beyond that wall. And this is how I've kind of made leaps and bounds with my art because um, the um, the amount of times, like even just doing this past Ren, no, the big push paintings that I've did,
Yeah, yeah, I saw
I
those ones, yeah.
I did those in three. I actually like sat down and I forced myself to paint those in like 3 days, and I'm even though I use projectors sometimes depending on like the time it needs to be
Yeah.
done, but the the amount of times where I'm like, oh my god, these don't even look close to these people, and how they actually turned out, especially like Romaine and Ren. I'm like, oh, okay, so new skills acquired. I know what I'm capable of,
Yeah.
and now that kind of like sets the standard for any other projects that I need. Well, not need to do, but it kind of sets the standards of, okay, Katie, you can do this. You're just gonna actually have to sit down and push through the stuff that you don't want to do.
Yeah, well, especially because you're awaiting, and it's very particular for you too, because it's like a mix between having a a certain idea of the outcome you want, but then also having it mixed up with like a passion of yours. So it's like a hobby and a passion and something you love to do. So this is like there's all of the dopamine, involved, but then there's also like the level of quality you want to put out and how you want it to be. And it's not it becomes, when you do it that way, I think it becomes not only something that's about the process, but it's also about the outcome and how it's going to look in the end.
But then that's where people get kind of hung up on just doing or trying to get better at stuff, is they're always looking at the outcome instead of the journey itself. And being like all the times that I really couldn't get past one specific, not style, but like I getting the nose to form properly or getting the correct shading and so on and so forth. I would obviously had to take a step back and do some research, but being able to uh-oh. See?
The train is gone again.
Yeah, this is my daily thing. I'll be in mid conversation and then I'm like, it's a really important thing, and
Can you just take care of the chat for a minute, because I just have to open for my cat because he's being really annoying right now.
yes,
Oh,
I can do that.
thank you so much. I'll be back in a second.
Okay, see, this is, oh, almost fell out of my chair. What do you guys, what do you guys kind of struggle with ADHD, other than the typical I forget or I lose track of what I'm talking about? Because I find just talking to people in general, what did Wolf with Johnson? Execution might be the end of the process, but I find it's often the start. But I often engage the most interesting part of an artist. It's getting started, so you are correct about that. I find um getting it started. Hold on, I have to see, now I have to read this again because my brain jumbled. The result of or execution might be the end of the process, but I often find it's the start and gateway to. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So being able to follow through on and actually execute what you actually needed to do, that makes. See, my words aren't wording today, so you got to with me. But yes, I know what you're talking about. The Wolf Johnson. I know what you're talking about. I don't have my glasses on.
Crystal said, every time I make progress on something but need to backtrack to make changes, I lose my momentum. Oh yeah. I've already had that so many times on different projects. Wolf says your wording fine, I'm convoluted.
Understood it, but this is how I know I'm like my social, like as we discussed before, like my social battery starts to deplete, and this is where my ability to process what I'm reading and then trying to like verbal diarrhea it out, it's never a good thing. So we can just kind of, yeah, that.
Oh yeah,
This is
yeah, exactly.
this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
me
sure.
struggling, guys.
And Cody says learned recently that the phone and doom scrolling are a horrible thing. The scrolling gives a constant dopamine feed, but then you burn 3 hours scrolling instead of doing things have to. Yeah, well, that is obviously. I think that's like the downside of social media. It's just this constant dopamine shoot that gets us into this paralysis state, paralyzed state where we're just on the phone for hours and hours. That's really something where I try sometimes, well, often I like put my phone down and I go and do something else. And because that gets mixed up with I don't know where I put my stuff, then I come back and I'm like, yeah, I can't remember where my phone is. Well, I have to do this anyway. And then sometimes I'm like, I'm kind of offline, off my phone for a few hours, and then I come back and I have like messages like, where are you? I've been trying to reach you. I'm like, well, that's kind of the issue too, because people think you can reach everyone all the time, any minute of the day. And if you can't reach someone, if you try to call 2-3 times, send a message, and the person isn't responding, then obviously something's wrong. But actually, no, and I mean, we've grown up in a time, I'm 38, so I've grown up in a time where we didn't have any cell phones, and we said like, well, let's meet at noon. And then you just waited there until the other one arrived. And if the other one was like half an hour late because of train problems or something, then you just waited for half an hour, and then you were like, oh, hey, been waiting for half an hour. How are you? And it wasn't like because you couldn't have an immediate answer that something was wrong. And so there's also this pressure now of being available all the time. And that's something that's really daunting for me sometimes, because I don't always want to be available for everyone.
No, that's kind of why I've been not dreading to make a separate account, but this is I feel bad for like anybody who has like super high followings or just a high enough audience that you have to be in constant contact with them just to be able to keep their attention. And because if you don't, then they're like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
But then you feel bad and just creates this weird feedback loop of if I don't struggle and make it at least an effort with my audience. Oh, guys, I don't know. I have to call it a day. I, my brain is done. This is my brain saying, Katie, we just can't unless you want to just you can go on a tangent, and I'd be like, yeah.
I can just do a monologue, or I can discuss stuff, with the chat, and then you can just go like,
Oh, maybe it'll help if I just like walk around with just like we can try that. But
well, as I already told you, I don't take, because I know how this is, and I think the social battery is really a thing, and we all have different levels, and depending on the energy we have at the beginning, now I don't know how long we've been going on for, but I think about an hour. So
okay,
yeah, it's been an hour now, and
well,
so that's already good, I think. And
yeah.
it's normal if you're running out of energy there. And I know I have days where sometimes I can't form sentences correctly. And sometimes it's really frustrating because in your brain, it seems really clear, but then you just don't know how, it just doesn't come out of your mouth. And you're like, well, and you just can't find the words to express what you're thinking. So yeah, I fully understand that. So if you're done, then we can stop it there, and we can, we'll do another live next week.
Yeah. Like, is this people who are here the just in and out or just witnessing this? Would you guys actually enjoy more of these type of interactions or these tangents? Because
Conversations.
yeah, these conversations. See, I'm just like kind of Captain Morgan. Yeah. See.
Yep, everybody got it.
Yep.
Yeah, all good. Yeah,
Okay.
because we were discussing this. Actually, started discussing this the first time we met when I interviewed you. And oh,
Yes.
Cody's saying the ADHD Chronicles. That's not too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said earlier, Katie had I think a really good idea. She talked about calling it tangents without borders, which I think is really, really a good idea there. But yeah, we've been talking about this for ages because I interviewed you, I think it was December, maybe?
Uh,
I think,
no, it's Jan.
or the
Not.
beginning of January. Well, it was yeah, already a few weeks ago. So when we first met, I think we knew beforehand because we'd been messaging like a few days before the interview, and we
Yeah.
knew beforehand that it was going to get out of hand. And so we already knew that when we would meet, it would be like an effing long tangent for hours. And we didn't miss, because then I ended up doing the interview with you, which lasted, I think the filming lasted for about an hour and a half. And then we continued talking on the phone for an hour and a half. So we
Yeah. So
were just talking and ranting and going on tangents for like 3 hours. And then we were
yeah.
both like, we're really tired. We have to stop this.
Because when you try to stop the conversation, we just start another tangent. It's like,
Well, yeah. What Wolf says it's the best way. What's the best way? To go on rants and tangents for 3 hours?
how
Is
you get ideas. That's how you.
Well, I think what is interesting is that because we have this like quick fire kind of thinking going on, where we can, jump from one subject to the next, and we kind of get how the other one is thinking, and it doesn't, I don't care that you lose your train of thought or that we go on so many different tangents. It's, normal for me. So I think that's also what kind of gets you into some really deep, interesting conversations, because if everything is like planned out, it kind of gets a bit flat for me. And
Yeah.
often so when I do the interviews, a lot of people, I have an interview coming up. Well, I have one tomorrow and I have one on Monday. And the girls both told me they were kind of stressed out because they're not used to doing any interviews and stuff. And I was like, well, it's called an interview because that's like the term for it, but it's just like a laid back conversation. We're just going to discuss stuff. And then the girls on Monday, they were like messaging me like, oh, this is giving me a bit of anxiety because I don't really know how to manage, how to time manage stuff. And I was like, don't worry about time. We can talk for 2 hours, because then it's my work to edit it down to reasonable time so it's watchable. But I did that for so many people I interviewed, where we were talking for like an hour and a half, 2 hours about so many different things. And then I somehow, edited it to 40, 50 minutes so it's kind of watchable. And but if we don't do that, then people kind of stay in boxes thinking, okay, this is the topic, so I'm going to talk only about this, and then we move to the next topic and to the next one. But if you give like free range to people, then you end up having really, really interesting conversations.
Or you could also have train wrecks too, where you're like, basically what usually happens is you have a subject at the beginning, and then 3 hours later it 360s all the way back. To that one point. So when we actually talk or just go on tangents, it's basically like a sub level of our first conversation.
Oh yeah, of
And
course.
and it just kind of goes whoa all the way back.
Yeah, but then it's like, how long does it take to pull it back to the beginning? Because that's the entire, that's what makes the difference. Sometimes it's an hour, but it can be 3 or 4.
But that's the whole stress of it. It's like, how do we putting a time limit on? Okay, do we wrap this up, or do we just like leave it where it is and pick it up at, I don't know, at another date or something? But yeah, no, I
No, well, I think people put too much stress on how to do things, and especially in these situations conversations and what we're doing now, it's like we are interacting with people that are, coming into the chat, and that's really nice, and there are people watching this, but then the idea of it all is to have a natural communication between us that is, naturally flowing. And so to put kind of a frame on that for me is very restrictive. So I think, if this is our first one together, I'm really happy that we did this, because I adore you anyhow. So anytime I get to see you and talk to you, I'm really happy anyway. But yeah, I think it's really good. I think we talked about so many different things that apparently people are interested in too. So if this is enough for you and that you're getting tired, then it's okay, and we can say goodbye to everyone and stop here and pick up next time, because I think this is going to be something, a weekly thing between us. Yeah.
I think so too. I find that this if I actually had a decent amount of sleep last night, it would have been fine. But yeah, you know what? Like, if people are really interested in like these type of discussions where we can give
Oh, did you see? Joanne says, I haven't hung out in Insta Live before. It's got a different feel. It's great. Oh, thank you, Joanne. Well,
yeah,
actually, Joanne, we could also think about doing something with her or something together, because she has, really an interesting way of creating on her socials too. You have to check her out.
yeah, absolutely. I and then we can always just like invite people, or we could just have like a
Yeah.
huge right?
Of course, yeah, whatever. I'm open, I'm open for anything, because I think, the more we do whatever we feel like doing and we want to do, that's the entire thing about being genuine. And I think there's a huge lack of that right now. So being just, authentic and ourselves and, genuine, then we're going to attract people who are, like-minded and who want to see something authentic too.
Yeah, and be able to offer like the tools and the little tips and stuff. But even having like the audience just interacting too, that's I think guys. I find that anytime that I watch lives or go on Discord and there's like chats and stuff, I'm like, this is actually really cool, except for now I have to interact with another person and then interact with the people here and then try to pay attention, but then I'm trying to read. I'm like,
Well,
this
we
my
can we can organize this. We can do a thing where you mainly focus on our conversation, and I read things that are in the chat, and I read them out to you, so you don't have to focus on it, and then you can respond to people in the chat.
I would love that
Oh,
because
you see, outsourcing is always a good idea.
maybe that will be able to continue the conversation or
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I don't know, because I'm like, anytime that you have something, or someone in the the chat brings up a good point, I'm like, I would like to be able to give you some input on that, but brain start
I
does not.
I can do that for you or for us. I can do that, no problem. But yeah, it's nice to see. Well, I'm really happy for everyone that's been with us on this live and who's in the chat.
Totally.
Yeah, things are getting crazy. We have to let her sleep. No, but thank you for everyone that decided to come and check us out. And it's our first one. We've been wanting to do this for a few weeks now, so I'm really happy we did. I think it's a great idea. And I think it's a really good space to have like this communication and interaction going on, because maybe, as we saw before, we can have a discussion about things that we have difficulties with, and then have people in the chat give advice too. So it's really good, because it's like passing the knowledge, of some things that can help us and that can help people who come and check us out. So thanks to everyone who was there and who interacted with us.
Yeah, it's much appreciated. And like, if there's if there's ever
Error.
time, guys, if there is a time that you want to ask a question, or you just put in the chat, and we will be able to answer it. And if you have any ideas, or you want to ask us, and you don't want to forget, just send us a message.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we can just kind of build up that.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Well, thank you so much, Katie, and we'll tell all of you guys when we are doing this next time.
Yeah.
So thank you to everyone. Sending you much love. Thank you.
Bye.
Oh, there's just someone just jumped on, and
No.
how? But Kayla, we're going to do this on a weekly basis. So, and I'm also keeping this one, recording this. So I'm going to put, you know, some shorts out of this, so people who haven't seen everything are maybe going to catch up a bit.
Oh,
So, bye, Wolf. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye. See you soon.
bye.
Bye. Au revoir.